Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk about the Vikings and how to reconcile what they did, the terrible things that they did in war and raids, and a lot of it was pointless. How can we learn from that in our own warrior spirit without repeating the atrocities a lot of them committed? Now, a lot of Vikings did terrible things. Rape was common, pillaging, of course, and stealing, obvious, killing, that's what everyone knows about, that's for sure. But how can we take their warrior spirit, their desire for exploration, and their bravery in going somewhere where they simply had no knowledge of the workings of that place, of any place that they went. They went into the horizon and basically decided that no matter what they confronted, no matter what they met in the lands that were far away, or lands they never even heard of, or lands that didn't even exist a lot of the time because the knowledge was so bad, the knowledge of the world at the time for the Vikings, especially without a writing system for centuries and centuries, millennia. How can we squeeze out the terrible things that they did and keep the noble and virtuous aspects of their endeavors? Basically, we have to flip the Viking mindset on its, well, let's say not on its head, but on its side. If the Vikings were about here and brutality, but they also were there in exploration and discovery, in bravery, and in the warrior spirit to accomplish anything, no matter what kind of forces they encountered, we can raise it up a bit to the tune of virtuousness, of morality, of humanity and compassion. And right about here, we get to the point to where we can squeeze those things out. And here's the line, basically, where we no longer have those terrible things that they did. And then after that line, we kind of build off of it and get to the center. Get to the uprightness, the straight path, the straight path up, in a way. I always think of things in a circle. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you obviously have seen that. But I always try to make it apply in an appropriate manner. And if the Vikings were indeed down here, on the bottom of the circle, for the brutality that they participated in, getting here is all about realizing that the modern world doesn't operate as the ancient one did, but that's also kind of a cop-out that a lot of people take. Things were different back then. How can we say if they were bad or not? The ancestors of the vast majority of the human race were bad. They did terrible things, and we can't justify a lot of those things. A few of them, maybe, but to justify even half of them, of all the things that our ancestors did, no matter if they're Viking, if they're Oriental, if they're Hispanic, if they're Native American, it doesn't matter. To reconcile all of it is basically impossible if you're coming at it from a moralistic and realistic point of view in terms of what we consider compassionate and uncompassionate nowadays. But if we decide to dispense with all the terrible things the Vikings did and instead choose to embrace their explorative capabilities and desire, along with their lack of fear for what they might encounter, and with their great ability, and this has been shown throughout history because of people recording themselves trading with the Vikings, a great market economy. It's probably one of the forerunners of a market economy. Market economy has been around way before the Vikings, but as far as foreign market economy, they were revolutionary. And if we take these things and choose only the most virtuous aspects of even the virtuousness of the Vikings, even the only few virtuous aspects of the Vikings that existed, we can find a pattern for ourselves to follow. Now, I could say that about anybody's ancestors in essence, but what makes the Vikings unique is that we can understand their ideas about these things through their ideology, through their philosophy, through their mythology. Even if it wasn't written down, the runes were preserved on rune stones. Certain historical events were preserved on rune stones, and we can see through their craftsmanship their understanding of a cyclical nature existing in the universe, not just in this world, but the belief in 9 worlds, 9 different dimensions in their own mythology. That's the closest word we can really connect to how they viewed the different worlds that were like Earth, or the universes they were in that were like Earth, is dimensions, and 9 of them, according to the Vikings. If we look at that, and then we imagine that Thor is the champion of humanity, the one who protects humans, we can embrace that attitude in the 9 world system, in the 9 dimension system, and explore the 9 dimensions in ideology, in our thoughts. How do different races in the 9 dimensions relate in the Viking mythology and pantheon? What are the primordial forces that the mythology of the Vikings are describing? The Jotun, the giants, the elemental giants, could be like the elemental forces, not unlike the Greek Titans. These elemental forces basically compose the fabric of reality. They compose also the innate instinctual nature in human beings and in all beings. And that kind of went to war with, well, in a way, Thor came later, so he kind of went to war with them. Thor, the idea of this god, this consciousness that is completely devoted to rescuing humanity and protecting people from destructive forces, that consciousness kind of went to war with the instinct within us that are the Jotun, the giants, the frost giants. And frost giants are frost basically because they're very slothful in their progress. Instinct itself is very much like a deep torpor, a deep iciness, a deep tendency to not progress but to form this solid shape, energetically and ideologically, of course. But the idea that, Isa is the rune of basically the frost giants, that solid bridge of ice that can't move but helps people walk across to other lands. Thor, the consciousness of Thor, combats this by destroying the ice giants and their hold on the elements and people, even the elemental nature of our ideology, fighting against the resistance of progress, fighting against the conservative nature of a fear of change, fighting against people's natural likelihood to fall into habits and not be able to get out of them, even in basic life, especially in ideology, and instead forcing them to become transformative. Really, when Thor is killing the frost giants, smashing the Jotun across the heads with Mjolnir, the mythology is about him smashing the giants with Mjolnir, and then it produces lightning in the sky. That's why we see lightning. And this is what I always think about these comparisons, is that there's an element of truth to them. We just have to understand the elements and what Thor represented, what the giants represented, and all that. Now, Thor combating the ice giants, torpor, slothfulness, fighting that element in all things, especially in human beings, to save us, is what a good man would do. But there are good gods and gods that participate in other actions to help mankind above him, below him, and around him. Like Odin is the Allfather. He collects the honorable dead and places them in a place where they can do battle with him because of their desire to, against the forces of chaos at the end of this universe's span of existence. And I sincerely doubt it will look like a battle that we can understand, but these forces, these cosmic and destructive, chaotic, and preservative, and light forces will all meet at some point and basically in the universe. The souls being gathered by Odin, it doesn't mean that they are literal, like, they're going to have the same human form, but the consciousnesses are going to combine to fight the chaotic force before the universe is destroyed, and then when both sides destroy each other, the universe will be destroyed, but then another universe will rise out of that. Another god that we can compare to human consciousness and human existence in relation to what is good, it would be, let's say, Balder. Balder is the one who will preserve the virtuousness of this universe. And he died by Loki's deception of another god, but he did not die eternally. He simply was cast into a state to where he will be a light and virtuousness of the next universe. And that's what he represents, the preservation of what is good, Balder, of the Norse pantheon. Now, another god, and I like to talk about the relationship between gods, and then it's a relationship between different forms of consciousness that we can all take a part in, but also might exist in their own forms, and kind of combat or collaborate to achieve certain goals. If it's chaotic, to achieve chaos, destruction of the universe. Is preservative, try to extend the universe as much as possible, like Odin, who's the all-father of the gods that want to preserve the universe. Another god would be Sif. And Sif is Thor's wife, and she's basically harvest. She's the wheat that feeds humanity. And in the form of consciousness that we're discussing right now, she'd probably be the knowledge and the wisdom that is ever youthful and ever reinterpreted with new generations. Because Sif is immortal, and she's also harvest-based. Now, there's not a whole lot about Sif, but another god that's Vanir, which is more connected to time and the cycles of the universe than the forms of consciousness. So they're the Aesir, the high gods that Odin is head of. The Vanir are more connected with time and cycles. Freyr is also the god of the harvest, but also fertility and peace, the tranquility of nature, the ability for it to continue itself in a harmonious way, so that things are propagated and destroyed in an appropriate manner, that time will move on, but life will move on with it. And Freyr is described as a Vanir connected to time and cycles. He's also the brother of his twin, which is a female called Freya. And Freya is also a Vanir. The war between the Vanir and the Aesir, it's a long conversation, and I view these as different forms of consciousness kind of going to war than coming to a truce, because the Vanir are much higher than the Jotun, the destructive forces, but they're more connected to time and cycles than the Aesir are, which are mainly forms of consciousness. And Freya represents possessions, the wealth of the world, kind of like Lakshmi in Hinduism. And I am Hindu, but I'm also true to the old gods. I'm also Ashtar, which will make a lot of people pissed off, but I'll go ahead and continue. Freya, she is the gold produced from all the corruption. The gold mined and smelted in a form that is usable, that's enjoyable, and that's what Freya is. That's why she's the goddess of possessions. And it's not always cut and dry possessions. A lot of the time, it's considered mobile possessions. The value one takes with one, the knowledge and the wisdom, refined into a point to where it is owned by one in a way, and we can travel with it and take it to other people, give it to other people. And that's what she kind of represents to me. A lot of these ideas connect. A lot of these ideas are overlapping in so many ways. But Loki is the last god I'll talk about for now, as far as the Aesir go, because Freyr and Freya, they were kind of Vanir, but they were taken into the Aesir halls and society and community because of the resolution of the war between the Vanir and the Aesir, which is a long story. But the last god I want to talk about that was among the Aesir consistently, even if he was Jotun born, is Loki. And Loki is he's the dark counselor of Odin. Odin knows, he can see into the future, and he can understand everything that was and will be, but he still has advisors, and one of the main advisors that constantly advises him is Loki, and he is the adopted son of Odin, basically, born of a Jotun. But Odin, honestly, there's a few passages in basically Norse lore that say that Loki was equal to Odin, and Odin considered him as such. And he was a darker half that always talked about how he always argued against kind of what the Aesir decided a lot of the time, what the main forms of consciousness decided, saying how it was hypocritical, how they abused their power and held it over other spirits or other gods, other forces, and imagined themselves virtuous regardless. And he called them out at one point, and he then was chained in a way that he was stuck to in a cave. And then there's a serpent above him that drips venom on him, basically, and it burns his face. But then his face comes back, and his wife kind of holds a bowl over his head to catch the venom. And you know what? Sif might actually have been his wife. I'm really trying to figure out through my memory, was Sif was she wife to Loki or Thor? I can't really remember. But she does represent Harvest. Whoever she was wife of. So, you know, you might want to look that up, because I'm not really clear on that part. I can't really remember it. But anyway, his wife, Loki's wife, would gather the poison in a bowl, but she had to eventually go and empty it and pour it, and then that's when Loki's face would burn and then come back. But this is highly symbolic, and it's really hard to understand. Loki's use of maybe choosing darkness within himself was really the venom that dropped on his face and destroyed his own view of how perfect he was, but that's for your own interpretation. And Loki was all about trickery, was all about illusion, was all about, and he helped the Aesir a lot of the times, but a lot of the time he causes the problems. And he's very similar to forms of evil spirits that we see in other mythologies, kind of like Satan. He's very similar to him, but he had more loyalty to the Aesir for, I think, a longer time or recorded time. And these are all forms of consciousness, by the way, in my opinion. But he eventually became the one who will help overthrow the Aesir, but also get everyone else destroyed and a new universe will be born. And that's basically how the Big Bangs go from one to the other in this universe, in my opinion. That's how consciousness resolves itself. You need the trickster to end everything, otherwise everything gets caught in inertia, and nothing ever changes, nobody ever grows, because there's no chaotic force to inspire growth. And that's really all I want to talk about today about the potential for being intellectual, wisdom-oriented, or combative warrior in life, using these stories, using these understandings of consciousness, using what the Vikings thought that they knew or believed, and maybe it's completely true, I do not know, but I do really believe that these are different forms of consciousness in the mythology of the Vikings, and they shaped the way that they acted. And if we can take out the good and virtuous aspects of their mythology, and how we can actually progress ourselves and others forward and preserve the world for as long as possible before the forces of chaos eventually destroy it, because eventually that will happen, we can be warriors in a way that most of the Vikings weren't. We can be compassionate warriors who have the same understandings but use them in a much better way. And that's really what we need to harvest. That's really what we need to accomplish relative to the Vikings. Take the lessons that they learned, but also the things that they failed at, and turn it into a compassionate, warrior-like spirit in the modern era. And that's all I got to say about this for right now. Thank you for watching. You want more videos about the Vikings? I got plenty of material. Feel free to comment and ask for it. I'd love a like, and I don't have a lot of subscribers right now, so please subscribe. And you know, I produce a lot of videos, so just keep up to date. Check me out more often, and I'll really appreciate it. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time.